she, and it, we say was. Like in the examples, we say Michael Jackson was an American singer. For we, you, and they, we have were. Move on to the negative form. We say was not. Of course, you know that like in the present time, the present tense, we have is not. Contracted or short form, it becomes isn't. The same thing over here. Was not, it becomes wasn't. And for were not, it becomes weren't. As for the interrogative form, here, of course, we should have the inversion of the subject as usual in questions. So we put was he or she or it, or was I, and then were you, we, or they. Now, here come some indications of time we use along with the past simple. Normally speaking, with the present simple or the present continuous, we have time expressions. If we take, for example, the present continuous, we have at the moment, we have now, we have right now, okay? Even for the simple past, we have some time indications. We use yesterday. Yesterday means one day before, okay? Yesterday. And I show you the example over here. By the way, E.G, that's short for example, okay? So I was at home with my sister yesterday. I was at home with my sister. The second is last. You can associate last with a lot of time expressions. You can say last night, last week, last weekend, last month, last year, last holiday. Okay. You can say last Monday, last Saturday. So all of it, all of these expressions are associated with the word last to mean the past. And again, I give you here an example. Last holiday, my parents weren't in Paris. They were in Rabat. And as you see in the example over here, we've got the verb to be in the negative form and the verb to be in the affirmative form. Let's move on. Again, we have over here the word ago. Ago, it means past. It's already past. It's finished. So we can say 3 days ago, 2 minutes ago, 10 years ago, 2 centuries ago. So all of these are expressions associated with the word ago. So John was at the supermarket 10 days ago. Again, we have in. If you have already used or learned the simple future, we can have in with an indication of the future, and it means the future. We can say, for example, in 2025, and that's an indication of the future. But as long as the date over here refers to the past, so in plus the date refers to the past too. Now for the next example, were you at school last week? And this is a question using the verb to be in the past. So the answer, here we call these short answers. The same again as the present tense. So were you at school last week? Yes, I was. Or no, I wasn't. Was she hungry yesterday? Yes, she was. Or no, she wasn't. So the next step, now this is like an exercise for you to check whether you understood the use of the verb to be in the past. So I'd like you to answer now this question. Where were the boys? So here are the boys and here is the place. Just to help you more with the place, I provided the word park. So this is a park. Now can you make a sentence using the verb to be and associating these two pictures? So the answer, the boys were at the park. The boys were at the park. The next question. Let's have a look at the second question. Where was your father last weekend? Again, this is a question. We have the verb to be in the past and we have an indication of the past, which is last weekend. So, can you guess the place? I'm sure you can do it. So, it's a supermarket. Now, make the sentence now using the verb to be and an indication of the past. So, the answer is My father was at the supermarket, if you want to add, last weekend. In the second exercise, I'd like you to put the words in the right order to make complete sentences. These are words that are scrambled, and I'd like you to put them into the right order to get the right sentences, complete and meaningful sentences. So I'll give you some time to reflect on them and answer the question. So for the first sentence, I wasn't at school yesterday. By the way, this type of exercise is really very important for you. Why? Because you learn how to structure a sentence respecting it. We start with the subject, and then we have the verb, and then we have indications of time or whatever. It depends on the structure of the sentence. So the first one is I wasn't at school yesterday. You can even say yesterday I wasn't at school. For the second example, we have something like two examples mingled, right, or mixed in one example. So Ali was absent last Monday because he was sick. Of course, indications of time can be placed anywhere you want. You can say last Monday Ali was absent because he was sick, or Ali was absent because he was sick last Monday. Okay? Now let's move on to the third example. My parents were at the shopping mall 3 weeks ago. Here, as you notice, we have the use of the word ago, and we have already seen that it's an indication of the past. For the last one, it's supposed to be a question, all right? So can you get the right answer, please? So the answer is, was Pablo Picasso a painter? Since it's a question, we have the inversion of the subject with the verb to be. So here our exercise is done. Move on. Now, I'd like you to answer these questions with short answers. I already mentioned how we write short answers, like, were you there? Yes, I was, or no, I wasn't, okay? So let's have a look at the examples of here. So, was the girl at the zoo? Here you've got the girl, and here you've got the place. See if the place is a zoo, and then the answer is yes. So, yes, she was. This is a short answer. Of course, you're not going to say yes, she was at the zoo in order to avoid repetition. So we say just yes, she was. Move on to the next example. Were the dogs at home? Were the dogs at home? Answer. No, they weren't. This is the short answer. No, they weren't. They were in the park. This is just optional. You can add it if you want, just to clarify meaning. But anyway, the short answer is no, they weren't. Now, in this exercise, the final one, I'd like you to fill in the blanks with was or were. The objective of this exercise is to check whether you understood how we use the verb to be in the past. So I give you some seconds. So, this is the answer key to this exercise. So, the first one, he was a good student. Peter and David, which is they, we use along with were very sleepy last night. The cat was in the garden. Of course, we replaced the cat with it. I was at the church yesterday. Mary and her sister were ill last week. And my aunt Lucy was at the shopping center last night. Hope you grasp the meaning and the use of the verb to be in the simple past. I've already introduced this person. Of course, you all know him, as he was very famous in the world of movie industry, all right? So his name is Charlie Chaplin, and this is one of his roles in one of the silent movies, in which the name of the movie is The Dictator. So now I'm going to read a text for you. It's like a paragraph text, and I'd like you to copy down these questions and answer them, okay? So while I'm reading, you try to read the questions and you answer them at the same time. Charlie Chaplin. Charles Spencer Chaplin was an English comedian, director, and composer during the silent film period. Chaplin was born in 1889 in London, England. At age 14, Chaplin had a small role in the movie Sherlock Holmes. He first traveled in the US in 1910 and worked in the Keystone Film Company. He played the role in about a dozen of short films and some other productions. His two final productions were in London. In 1972, Chaplin won an honorary Oscar. Charlie wrote, produced, and composed the music of nearly all his films. In 1999, the American Film Institute named Chaplin the 10th greatest male screen legend of all time. So I guess I'm going to repeat the listening in order to make you enable you to answer these questions. So I read for a second time. Charlie Chaplin. Charles Spencer Chaplin was an English comedian, director, and composer during the silent film period. Chaplin was born in 1889 in London, England. At age 14, Chaplin had a small role in the movie Sherlock Holmes. He first traveled in the US in 1910 and worked in the Keystone Film Company. He played the role in about a dozen of short films and some other productions. His two final productions were in London. In 1972, Chaplin won an honorary Oscar. Charlie wrote, produced, and composed the music of nearly all his films. In 1999, the American Film Institute named Chaplin the 10th greatest male screen legend of all time. Of course, now I guess you are able to answer these two questions, okay? Now let's have a look at the first question. We've got the word where and you've got the word when. Of course, you have to include the place and the time of Charlie Chaplin's birth. So let's have a look at the first answer. Chaplin was born in 1889 in London, England. So if you got it correct, then well done. For number two, what did Charlie do in 1910? So the answer is in 1910, he first traveled in the US, which is short for United States, and worked in the Keystone Film Company. So this is the text that I read for you. I posted here for other reasons. Of course, here we move on to verbs in the simple past, not just the verb to be. Of course, we don't have just the verb to be in the English language. We have other verbs that we can put into the past form. So please, I'd like you to have a look at the paragraph and try to underline or highlight all the verbs in the past, all the action verbs. So, answers? We have the verb was of course, and were, which is the verb to be in the past. We've got the verb had, we've got the verb traveled, we've got worked, played, won, wrote, produced, composed, and named. Okay, now I gathered all of these verbs over here. Let's now try to categorize them. As you notice over here, we've got some verbs that you all know, like play, work, whatever. We have the verb plus ed. We categorize them at a side and the others are at another side. So we call these regular verbs. When you've got verb plus ed, it's called regular verbs. So for irregular verbs, of course, I'm so sorry, we have no rule and you have to learn them by heart. But with practice, you encounter them more often, so you get acquainted with them and you learn them very, very easily, all right? So this is the answer. So here we have worked, as you see ed here at the end of each verb. So we have worked, played, produced, composed, and named. And for irregular verbs, we have wrote, had, wrote. Of course, you know that it's the past of the verb to write. So you've got some like resemblance, all right? Had, which is the past from the verb to have. Was and were, of course, you know them now that you have seen my lesson for you. And won, which is the past of the verb to win. So this is how we form verbs in the simple past. So I just categorize them into regular and irregular verbs, and I tried not to overload you with a lot of information. So for the affirmative form, we have verb plus ed. It becomes played, like as an example. For irregular verbs, we have had. And for the negative form, we have didn't. Here, they have something in common. For here and here, they are all the same, okay? We have didn't plus infinitive, and we have didn't plus infinitive. Of course, the bare infinitive form. For the interrogative form, we have did plus the subject. All subject pronouns have got only one verb, plus the infinitive form. The use of the simple past. When do we use the simple past? We use the simple past to speak about actions that started and finished in the past. These actions have nothing to do with the present time. They started and finished in the past. Examples, as you see here, yesterday and last week, we have already seen this before, all right, with the verb to be. So yesterday, I went to the museum with my friends. Here we have the verb went, which is the past of the verb to go. And here, last week, my parents and I, it's we, traveled to Paris. So now I'd like you to fill in the chart with the right verbs. So here it's the infinitive form. So I'd like you to provide the past simple form. So I give you 2 seconds to do this exercise, please. So answers, go becomes went, sleep becomes slept, invite becomes invited, read becomes read. The verb to read doesn't change in the past simple, but it changes in pronunciation. So the verb to read in the infinitive form is read, or in the present it's read. But in the past form it becomes read, like the color red, all right? Sing becomes sang, dance becomes danced, and do becomes did. So can you please put the verbs in brackets in the simple past form? I give you some seconds to do this exercise. So the verb to go becomes went. So she went to the disco alone. The storm started at about 10 o'clock. Thomas Edison invented electricity. Mike's ball fell down, okay, fall becomes fell, okay, down the hill and into the river a week ago. And last month, Jane got. Got is the simple past of the verb to get. And I said, and I repeated, it's up to you to learn these verbs because there is no rule. The verb changes and there is no rule for this. The best score in the English test. As a final task, I'd like to give you this as a homework, okay? You can do it as homework, okay? And if we have chance, we can correct it all together. So I'd like you to choose a famous artist, any artist in the world, okay? It can be, okay, I'd like you to choose artists that are that already died, like past, in order to be able to use verbs in the past, okay? So choose a famous artist throughout history. and write a short biography like the one of Charlie Chaplin, okay, of this artist using verbs in the past and also indications of the past, because you have seen now two things: verbs in the past and time indications of the past.